Hey everyone! So if you're watching this video, you've probably seen some other videos where this YouTuber gives some helpful tips on how to read more. These videos usually start off pretty ridiculous, with the person coming out holding like a huge stack of books and then dropping them on the table and being like, "I read 10 books every single week, and this is how you can too." And this is just so ridiculous because there is no way the average person can read a book every single day. It's just not possible. And then these helpful tips they give are really not helpful at all. They start off with things like, oh, read faster. And it's like, of course, why didn't I think of that? Of course, if I read faster, then I can read more books. Here's the problem with that though. A lot of times, at least for me personally, when I'm reading, I don't want to rush through the book that I'm reading. I really want to take my time, really get invested in the story and the characters, and really delve into and become part of this world that the author has created. Now, if you're just speed reading through a bunch of books, you're really gonna miss out, or at least for me personally, I tend to miss out on a lot of the enjoyment that comes from reading. So speed reading through a bunch of books just kind of defeats the whole purpose in reading, at least for me. And then another helpful tip is usually to say if you read shorter books, then you can read more of them than a longer book. Wow, there's an idea, right? Who would have thought? If you read like 5 100-page books, that's the same as reading a single 500-page book. So you can read 5 of those books instead of this one huge book. Okay, again, not helpful at all because maybe the book you want to read is a really long book. Maybe the books you don't want to read are really short books. So how's that going to help you? I mean, it's not. It's not going to help at all. That is the problem. So, they're saying, oh, read faster. Oh, read shorter books. No, that doesn't work. That doesn't work for a lot of people, at least. But then what about the third helpful tip? And this one is to, of course, find more time in the day to be able to read. Sure, okay, maybe you can kind of structure your day to have a set time period where you just sit down and read a book. However, for a lot of people, that might not be possible. Let's go through, we'll say a hypothetical situation, okay? So let's just say, hypothetically speaking, you work a full-time job, you have 2 young kids, let's say they're 4 and 1, and then on top of that, you also have all these other tasks that you want to do. For example, maybe, hypothetically speaking of course, you have to stain your deck at some point. Or maybe your wife wants you to build an extension on your chicken coop. And then you have to do all those things on top of all the daily chores that you always have to do, like dishes and cooking and cleaning and things like that. Of course, this is strictly hypothetical, right? So you have all these things keeping you busy throughout the day, and then you have all these other jobs and tasks that you need to do sometime during some other period of imaginary free time that you have. I mean, how's that going to work? I mean, it's not going to work. That's my problem. That is exactly the problem. I mean, sure, you can try to maybe get some free time late at night, possibly, but then also you're going to want to be getting good night's sleep for all the work you have to do, and then, the kids and all these tasks. So really, it's hard for the average person to have all this free time to be able to read a lot of books. It's just not going to be possible. And then that leads into this. You cannot compare yourself to other people. And you shouldn't. Comparison is the thief of joy. That's what they always say. If you are comparing yourself to somebody who is, maybe retired, or maybe somebody who's a full-time student but doesn't have a job or kids or, all these household chores they have to do, then obviously those people would be able to have a lot more free time and be able to read a lot more books than you would be able to. So instead of comparing yourself to other people, instead what you should do is compare yourself to yourself. So as an example, maybe let's say last year you read a total of 10 books. That's pretty good. I mean, for the average person, that's actually fantastic. Now, for the future year, instead of going on YouTube and being like, how can I read 100 books in a year or 50 books in a year or something ridiculous, just be like, okay, last year I read 10 books. How can I next year read maybe 11 books or 12 books? Make these goals attainable. Nothing too ridiculous. Nothing like, oh, I did 10, now I want to double it and get 20 books read in a single year. That might not be possible for your situation. So, if you want to end up reading more books, I don't really have any helpful tips for you. I mean, sure, maybe you can carve out some time during the day to be able to sit down and read. I know personally that's what I try to do. But, learning how to speed read, again, that hasn't worked for me in the past because it just defeats the whole purpose of reading, in my opinion. Reading shorter books than longer books, yeah, I mean, okay, obviously that's gonna work, but maybe the books you want to read are these big, huge, honking, like, bam, dictionary-sized books. So they're gonna take a lot longer to read than a 100-page book. Really, though, you shouldn't stress out about how much you want to read or need to read. It's not about needs, it's always about wants. Reading is supposed to be an enjoyable activity, something you do in your free time, something you do to relax, something you do to entertain yourself. If you're setting these goals of, oh, I want to read so many books a year, it's really going to take away the enjoyment and the relaxation that you get from reading. I know it does for me personally, but that's then one of the problems I've always been dealing with. I have a huge stack of books that I want to end up reading at some point. I end up buying more books, and then this list just keeps growing and growing and growing, which I need to stop doing. I need to stop buying all these books and getting new books when I have already, I don't know, 50-ish books I need to read. That's my problem, though. The thing is that you want to be able to get through those books as soon as possible, but you also want to enjoy your time with it. It is going to be kind of hard, though, especially, if you're on the internet and you see all these people being like, I read this many books like last week, or I read like 20 books the last month. Just try not to compare yourself to other people. Like I said, I try not to. It's hard, but I try not to. I try only to compare myself to myself, set attainable goals that I know I can achieve, maybe try to push myself just a little bit, but just make sure it's not impacting your enjoyment of reading. That's all I have to say. If you have any comments or questions for me, let me know down below. And thanks for watching. Bye!